Good morning, Moray Rabotai. We are continuing our Masechet Avodah Zarah. We are on Daf Tet Zayin, Amud Bet, 5 lines from the top. Today's Amud is being learned. L'schut Yehoshua ben Diana, Rabbi Rivka, Moshe ben Asi. Today's Amud is also being learned for Fashel Mav Yaakov Meir ben Nahid. Today's Amud is being learned as well for Ilui Neshama of Sipora, Bat Yitzchak. We are amidst a Mishnah and Gemara of selling wild beasts to Avodah Zarah. We mentioned that the problem, perhaps additional to working these animals, which would be the large animals of Behema Gasa of the previous Mishnah, the additional problem here is that it could be also used to tear apart people, which is activities that the Goyim did back in the Roman government, which the Jews were under the influence of the Romans. Up to today, even in Rome, you have still the bullfights and so on. But prior to that, this was activities that they did for fun, to have lions and bears fight with people, and people would watch them tear apart these slaves or people who were under the investigation of the government and so on. So hence, it would be an additional isur to them. Now, we had a shita in the Gemara that perhaps it would be mutar to sell the wild beast to the goyim, and that's the shita of Rav Chanan bar Rava, which the Gemara actually left a question on him. The Gemara now is going to discuss that Ravina actually started this discussion from contrasting our Mishnah with that very Braita. So, in other words, the Braita that we had last time was Keshem she'en mochlin lahem b'ma gasa, kachen mochlin lahem chaya gasa. The b'ma gasa and chaya gasa is exactly the same way. And even in a place that the minhag is that you are allowed to sell small animals like sheep and goats to the goyim, still the larger beast would be asur, whether they are domesticated or not. So hence the lion and the bear would be always asur, even if they are domesticated. In other words, if you have a pet lion, a pet tiger, a pet bear, still would be asur to sell them to a goy. That's the Braita. Now the Ravina contrasts that with our Mishnah and says Ravina like this: Matitinat Braita umeshani. Tanan, on one hand, we have in our Mishnah in Tet Zayin Amud Aleph on the bottom of the Amud, and Mochlina and Dubin Varayot, and you cannot sell to the Avodah Zarah bears and lions. Tama says the Gemara, says Ravina, the reason for that, the Itbe Nezek, that is Nezek L'Rabim, is considered a danger for the society to sell these animals to the Goyim. Halet Benezek, but it would seem from our Mishnah that it would be mutar to sell a domesticated lion or bear or tiger, because the only reason is because it's Nezek L'Rabim or Minu. And it seems a stira from a Braita. Kshem she'en mochlim be'ema gasa, our very Braita. Kach en mochlin chaya gasa, that you can never sell chaya gasa to the goyim. So lions, bears, tigers, can you sell them or not? No. Domesticated? Still no. So you see a contrast, a stira between the Mishnah and the Braita. So he answers, Va'afilu b'makom she'mochlin be'ema daka chaya gasa en mochlin. Umeshani, and Ravina answers, Ba'ari shavur, that our Mishnah, who seems to indicate that it's mutar to sell a pet lion, a domesticated tiger, a friendly bear, is talking about the ones that are shavur, are lame and maimed, and they can't really work. And that follows the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. In the previous Mishnah, you all remember that Rabbi Yehuda was of the opinion that if you have a cow that can't work, a donkey that's broken or lame, then you could sell it to the goyim. So that's the way Ravina sets the contrast between our Mishnah and our Braita. Rav Ashi Amar, Stamari Shavurhu. Again, we have the Shita of Rav Ashi that holds you don't have to have a maned animal for a lion and a bear, but lion and a bear are always shavur, are always considered incapable of working. Because when was the last time you saw a lion carry a carriage? Lion is a lion. They tear apart, they roam around, but they don't work. And therefore, when it comes to working, we're not never concerned that you're sending this animal to a goy, and they're going to come, other Jews are going to come to rent their lion to the goy for work. Nobody works the lion. Lion is there for beauty and for activities such as zoo attraction and so on and so forth, if they're not tearing apart people, or for being pets, but they're not working. So therefore, Rav Ashi says you don't need to say a sliver of a case that the lion and the bear are lame and maimed. Every lion and every bear are not there for working, and therefore, if they are domesticated, it will be mutar. So says the Gemara, Matkifla Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman asks a fundamental question: Man le malan de ari chaya gasahu dilma chaya dakai. Says, who says that the lion that we're talking over here is even considered a chaya gasa? Maybe lion is not large enough to be considered a large animal. It's considered a smaller animal. Now, Rav Shlomo Kluger over here writes that the question Rav Nachman here really is talking about whether or not you're talking about a larger breed of lion or younger, or a smaller one. If the African lions are bigger, Asian lions are a little smaller and weaker. So Rav Nachman is saying it may very well be that when we say that the animal is mutar to sell when it's domesticated, which is our Mishnah, indicating that a lion is only because of its danger that's asur to sell, maybe that Mishnah is talking about a smaller type of lion that is not really considered a chaya gasa, but the Braita talks about larger animals. Chaya gasa is talking about a larger wild beast. So says the Gemara, Rav Ashi daik matnitin umotiv tiyufta. Before we've mentioned that Rav Chanan bar Rava was questioned, and the Gemara left the question as a very strong question. Tiyufta Rav Chanan bar Rava tiyufta. Now, the Gemara now says that Rav Ashi, the author of Gemara, said, I don't need a Braita to leave a tiyufta at Rav Chanan bar Rava. I could prove against Rav Chanan bar Rava from our own Mishnah without needing the Braita. Because pay attention to what our Mishnah says. What does the Mishnah say? That you could sell to them different animals, but you can't sell to them dubin v'arayot. Lions and the bears, you cannot sell to them. So says Rav Ashi, let's read and dissect and analyze the Mishnah together. Tanan, en mochrilan dubin v'arayot. You can't sell dubin v'arayot, bears and lions. And not any other thing that has nezek as danger for the community. The reason is because they're dangerous. Halet benezek, but if they didn't have nezek, it would be mutar. But then Rav Ashi asks the $1 million question. Says Rav Ashi, did you ever ask yourself why the Mishnah says dubin v'arayot? You know how many wild animals and wildlife you have out there? Well, is selling lions and the bears is the top sales in the wild beast? Well, you don't have moose, you don't have other things. Is so many wild life over there that you could be catching and selling before you would ever think of selling or catching a lion and a bear. So why does the Mishnah say lion and a bear? Says Rav Ashi, it's coming to teach you the second part of the halacha. The reason the Mishnah mentions Ari is because Ari never works. Nobody sells or buys a lion for work. Nobody sells or buys a bear for work. And that's exactly what the Mishnah is coming to teach you. It says only these breeds of animals, that they never work, the only potential problem with them is that you would use them for killing people. So therefore, if they are domesticated, it's completely mutar. Because what problem would you have? Danger? They don't have. Work? They would never work. That's why the Mishnah mentions Ari and a dove, lion and a bear. But if you want to sell a moose, for instance, or a arod, which is considered, like Gemara is going to mention it, it's considered some type of wild mule or donkey, that would be asur. Why? Because you could work from them. You could get work from them, and that would be asur, not because of danger to people, but because the goy could work. And then we're back to the problem we discussed originally, that if you sell your arod to the goy, Reuben, your next door neighbor, sees your arod, which has a sign on his forehead. Everyone knew back in the day, whose animal is who. And he's going to say, oh, Shimon gave his animal to the goy, so must be I could rent my arod to the goy as well. And then the goy is going to come to work it on Shabbat, and you will be transgressing the Isur of Shvitat Behemto, which is the sugya we had before. So that's the Gemara. Aval midi acharina de avid melacha lo. But says Rav Ashi, you see, from our own Mishnah, without the need to the Braita, that you cannot sell any other wild beast to the Goy, aside from lions and the bears. So says the Gemara, Tiyufta de Rav Chanan bar Rava, Tiyufta. The Gemara, again, leaves it as a question. Now the Gemara asks the obvious question. It says, what type of melacha do you do with a chayagasa anyways? Says the Gemara, Amar Abaye, Amar li Mar Yehuda, the Be'mar Yochani, Tachani Rechaim Be'arodi. Says, no, they have this arod, which is a very interesting animal. It's not clear when you go throughout Shas. Arod is used as a dangerous, as an animal that would kill, and so on and so forth. But here, the Mefarshim explain it as some type, some special breed of a wild mule or donkey, and they used to use it for. It was very strong. They used to use it for turning the mill and grinding produce. That would be grains. That would be the use of arod. Says the Gemara. Amar Rab Zera ki avinan be Rab Yehuda Amar lan. Let me explain this a little bit more. We had in Masachet Baba Metzia Daf Pehei that Rav Zera was one of the individuals that made Aliyah in the time of Chazal. He was a Tamei Chacham in Bavel, and then he went up to Eretz Yisrael. We had the famous Gemara story that he davened to forget the Torah that he learned in Bavel because he loved the Torah of Eretz Yisrael so much, and that's one of the unique individuals that made Aliyah and went from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. Now, in Bavel, he had Rav Yehuda. The reason Rav Yehuda is not called Rabbi Yehuda is because when you got smicha in Bavel, the ones who got smicha in Bavel, they were called Rav. The ones who got smicha in Eretz Yisrael, they're Rebbe, right? That's the difference when you have a regular Gemara. He was a student of the students of Rav Ushmuel, and he says over here, I heard something from Rav Yehuda in Bavel before I came up to Eretz Yisrael, and then he contrasts it with what he learned in Eretz Yisrael. Says Rav Zera, Rav Yehuda, when I was back in Bavel learning with Rav Yehuda, and we mentioned that Rav Yehuda learned both from Rav and Shmuel. Rav was much older. Rav was a healthy person. The Gemara says he was Mishpachat Briim. According to Seder Drot and many others, Rav is the same person as Rav Abba, was the scribe of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which would make him spread from a span of Gedolei Tanaim throughout the first generation of Amoraim, a long, blessed life. But be that as it may, Rav was like Rebbe. You call Rebbe, you know Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Right? The Stam Rebbe, when you say the Rabbi in Eretz Yisrael, was a reference to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. When you said Rav in Bavel, was reference to Rav Abba Arichta. He was a very tall, handsome person. He was called Rav Abba, his name was, and Abba Arichta was his nickname, the tall Rabbi Abba. Right? So he first learned with Rav, and then when Rav passed away finally, he went to Shmuel to learn from Shmuel. Right? That's the history of this you see in many places in Gemara, including Chulin, Kuf Lamed Zayin, and other places. So that's the story of Rav Yehuda, and Shmuel loved him. Shmuel used to call him Shinena, the sharp one. So he was a Talmud of Rav, Talmud of Shmuel. So Rabbi Zera says, I learned by Rav Yehuda, who was a student of Rav and Shmuel, and he said the following, Amalan Gimiri Minai, learn this from me. Hi Milta, the Migavra Rabba Shmieli. I heard this from a tremendous person, Velo Yedana, this one I don't remember if I learned it from Rav or I learned it from Shmuel. I don't remember. Now, as soon you'll see, perhaps the reason he didn't remember is because he must have heard it from both of them. Says the Gemara, that a large wild beast, when it comes to the halachot of shchita and pirkus, it's the same halacha as a behema daka. We explained, I'm going to just say quickly say it again. We mentioned before that in the Chot, Shchita, Nevelot, and Terefot, when you shecht an animal, the animal has to be alive at the time of Shchita. If you had a heart attack right before you did Shchita, it's Taref, it's Nevelah. So the sign of a healthy animal that halachically is considered alive is that when you do the Shechita, there is a natural reflex of the body and the nerves that the body starts moving. And the minimum movement indicating a minimum level of health for it to be halachically considered alive is 2 movements in a smaller animal that's not too heavy. So you shecht a cow, not a chicken, we're talking about animals. You shecht a lamb or a goat, they have to move their hands at least twice, right? They spread it and then they take it back. If they just spread it, that shows that the life went out. But there was no life really to be able to pull it back. And that's nevelas, no good. But if you have a large cow, that the limbs are very heavy, even that one move is enough. But that one move you do need, right? So how about a large wild animal, right? You have a massive deer. As kasher, as chaya. So they are much better in movement. They're faster. They have more muscles. They're lighter in their body parts. So we said from before that has the halacha chumrah. It's chumrah has the halacha of a be'ema daka. They have to make 2 movements. If you shechted a large deer and it just made 1 move, by cow would be kasher, by deer would be pasul, would be taref, nevela. So says the I heard this, says Rav Yehuda, I heard this halacha from either Rav or Shmuel, I don't remember. Ki ati le Kurkunya, when I came to Kurkunya, ashkachte le Rav Chia bar Ashi, diati v'kamar mishemed Shmuel, I heard that he was saying it in the name of Shmuel. So I said to myself, Chaya gasa harei b'madaka. Amina, I said to myself, Shema Amina, you hear from here, you hear from this, Mishmed Shmuel itmar. That this was said in the name of Shmuel. Rav Zera says, I heard this from Rabbi Yehuda, that he didn't remember if it was Rav or Shmuel. Then I came to Kurkanya, and I heard it being said in the name of Shmuel. I said, that's a big chidush, because now I know that my Rebbe, Rav Yehuda, must have heard it from his Rebbe Shmuel, not from Rav. But that's not the end of the story. Ki atayne Surah, when I came to Surah, right? There were 3 main places of yeshivot in Bavel: Surah, Naharda, and Pumbedita. Right? The yeshiva of Surah, Ashkachte le Rabba bar Yirmiyah, the Yati v'kamale mishmed Rav. He was saying the same halacha in the name of the Rav. Chaya gasare hiki be'ema daka, that a large wild beast is like a be'ema daka when it comes to the halachot of Pirkus. Amina, and I said to myself, Shema Amina mishemed Rav. You see from here that it was said in the name of Rav, and it was said also in the name of Shmuel. So perhaps that's why my Rebbe, the genius Rabbi Yehuda, wasn't sure, because he probably heard it from both of them, and that's what confused him. Both Rav and Shmuel said this halakha, that Chaya Gasa, when it comes to the halachot of Nevela by Pirkus, the Pirkus is the shaking, the movement is like a be'emataka, like a small domesticated animal. Kisalikat lahatam. When I went, made aliyah, finally I went lahatam to Eretz Yisrael. Ashkachte the Rav Asi. I found Rav Asi, Rav Ami and Rav Asi were the biggest Hamim of Eretz Yisrael. And I found them saying, the Yati v'kamar, he was sitting and saying, Amar Rav Chama bar Guria, Mishmet Rav. Rav Chama bar Guria said in the name of Rav, Chayagasa ike be'madaka, this halacha. That Chayagasa, a large wild beast, is like a be'madaka lepirkus. Amri le, I said to Rav Asi, this is Rav Zera, right, with a twinkle in his eye, he says, wait a second, you think only Rav said this? You saying it in the name of Rav, and you saying that the one that said it from Rav is Rav Chama bar Guria. Remember, he himself, when he heard it in the name of Rav, was not from Rav Chama bar Guria, but rather was Rabba bar Yirmiyah. Rabba bar Yirmiyah. The Gemara is very specific. Let me teach you a klal in Shas. Many times when the Gemara says, Amar Peloni, Mishemeh de Peloni. So-and-so said in the name of so-and-so. That means, says the Ad Malachi, say the Mefarshei Hashas, the Klalei Hashas, that means that he did not hear it directly from him. He did not. In the name of Peloni. Who said it to him, to the speaker? We don't know. He just said, I heard in the name of Rav. Right? It's not a direct quote. But then sometimes the Gemara says, Amar so-and-so, Amar so-and-so. That's a direct quote. That means he heard it from him directly with his own ears. And usually it means that the speaker is the Talmud of the one he's quoting. Those are Klalei Hashas. And they hold true in almost everywhere. So here, you understand why Rabbi Zarah is making this comment. He said, you just told me that this is Rab Chama bar Guria Mishemed Rav. Right? Don't you hold it's Rabba bar Yirmiyah? Because I heard it was Rabba bar Yirmiyah Amar Rav. It was a direct quote from Rabba bar Yirmiyah. And the time of the Gemara, they were very specific about the Torah Shebal Peh. It was Torah Shebal Peh, so it was very specific who said what, because you would use that to say, well, he can't be that he said this because he said that. So it was very important for them to note who said what and when it was said. The chronological order of things and the names of the chain of Mesorah is part of the Torah Shebal Peh. And the Chachmei Gemara, Chachmei Mishnah, they were very specific about it. Hence the question. Okay, me and you, look as just tell me the halacha, who cares about the details? But the details are very important. So he asked this question. V'lo savar lamar, you don't hold man marad shmata, that the one that said this in the name of Rav is Rabba bar Yirmiyah? Amar le, so Rav Asi answers Rav Zera. He says, Patya ukma, which means the darkened vessel. When you have a Tamil Chacham that's Ragil v'Zaken, right? Zaken v'Ragil, he's a big time Chacham. He's been around the corner, around the block, and he's used to this. He says, you are a massive Tamil Chacham, like myself, and minayu minach tistayim shmata. From what I say and from what you say, you see the whole picture. Because they knew the chronology of different Chachamim, who was older than who, and who was direct Talmid of who. So it says, Rabbi Asi to Rabbi Zera, he says, must be that you're correct, and I'm correct also, but the full picture is there are three people involved with this. And the line of the proper line that this halakha was passed through was the following. Itmar Nami, Amar Rav Zera, Rav Zera said, Amar Rav Asi, in the name of Rav Asi, which is what we just spoke about, the one that he saw in Eretz Yisrael, Amar Rav bar Yirmiyah, Amar Rav. So this is in the name of Rav bar Yirmiyah, in the name of Rav. Chama bar Guria, in the name of Rav. So it's Rav bar Yirmiyah, which is what Rav Zera heard, and he said it in the name of an older individual, which is Rav Chama bar Guria, which is what Rav Asi had quoted before, and he heard it directly from Rav, this halakha of Chaya Gasa, Harehi kebema daka lepirkus. Now, in the few minutes that we have left, we're going to start the next part of the Mishnah. This is going to segue into a fantastic Agata piece, which is going to be the beginning of many other Agata pieces back to back. Literally, this is one of the most packed halachic Agata, fascinating Gemarot. Really, we're probably not going to cover an Amud, even half an Amud probably every shiur, because we want to pause and just delve into the marvelous things that the Gemara is going to discuss over here in Hashkafa Ar Halacha. So we're going to segue in it from these two dots.
Did it specify how big the animal is, or how many pounds it has to be? There's a big.
Not really, because you're correct actually. I alluded to it by what the Gemara said in Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman challenged the whole thing altogether. I said, "Who says a lion is it's considered a chaya gasa. Maybe it's considered chaya daka. Now, regular lions, I mean, African lions are significantly bigger than Asian lions, and that's what they're.
I'm talking in regards to the big cow versus or the small.
You're saying domesticated animals versus a kosher, right? Versus the kosher wildlife. It's a good question because again, you could have a sheep that is the same size as a deer, smaller, younger deer, but you have then massive kosher animals that are much larger than sheep. But regularly speaking, again, it would have to be a chaya gasa. You have chaya daka as well. You have a little deer, it will be considered chaya daka.
And how do they say only two animals were chaya gasa? How can that be that a tiger is not a chaya gasa?
It is, of course it is.
So any cats?
Any wild cat, you're talking about, yeah, I mean, tigers are even larger than lions. That may be part of what Rab Nachman is asking. They could be, well, then you have the breed in between them as well, the ligers. It could be up to 900 pounds.
They're saying only lions and bears, right?
That's only because of the danger part of it. Yeah.
Right, but there's a lot of dangerous animals that are not in that category that are not working also.
Like
silverback gorilla.
Yes, I'm not sure if they had all of those things, to have domesticated ones. In other words, the Gemara is saying things that could be also or were very kept as domesticated pets, especially in Rome. They actually had those things that they dealt with, not necessarily all the wild beasts that we know. The ones that were kept in wildlife and also in captivity as pets were usually the larger cats as lions and also bears. Historically, they were kept as things as well. So let's just start this one moment before we get into it. The Gemara is going to. I'm just going to give a preface to what the Gemara is going to talk about. The Gemara is going to talk about different structures that you could build, as some of them being structures that the Goyim in Rome, the Avodah Zarah, used to judge and kill people right there and then. It was not like the Sanhedrin that you have to be machmitzat adin. They would take them up to this tower. On top of the tower, they had the judgment, and the kings had this. They would have that, and they would have like a skyfall thing. If the guy did not make it or didn't have an answer, they just drop him dead from top of there. And that's what the Mishnah said, that you cannot build. The Gemara is going to ask that you have besilkaot, that the Mishnah said is asur. The besilkaot, we find several besilkaot, and some of them are mutar, some of them are asur, and that really segues into the agatas in a way that Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkos, Rabbi Eliezer Agadol, was actually taken to this place to be killed. And he was challenged by the judge as to believing in the Avodah Zarah that they had, and its minut, which Rashi, which was censored, seems to say that this was Natsrut, this was the Christianity of early days, and he actually seems in the Gemara that he admitted to the Dayan, at least on the surface level, that he believed into what he said, which becomes a massive problem. And Rambam actually uses this in his Igeret Hashmad, which is a fascinating talk, which we will discuss in the next shiur. Chazak u'baruch.